What about why tipping is so out of control in the US? That could be interesting because it kind of is. It is kind of crazy how every single thing has a tip thing now. I could watch that.
When was the last time you purchased something and you weren't asked for a tip? Yeah, I can't remember either.
Tipping culture has gotten out of control. I get up to the pay window and she's like, how much do you want to tip? What am I gonna tip you for? I'm in the drive-thru. Oh my God.
Tips have been on the rise for decades. During the 1950s, people commonly tipped 10% of the bill. By the 1970s and 1980s, that jumped to 15%. Today, people tip anywhere from 15 to 25%. According to one 2022 survey, consumers said they tipped more than 21% on—
Dude, I don't like when the tip button is a flat number. This is because what this is, a $2 tip on a $2.14 is actually like what, 100% tip. It is double the cost of the item. Yeah, I don't want to choose custom. No, the thing is, these things exploit the fact that you might be in line and you're kind of in a hurry and the person's looking at you and you have to pick something and you don't want to pick no. So you're so even if I pick $1, it's fucking, all of this stuff is designed to en masse exploit the percentage of people who are either a little anxious or a little uncomfortable or a little, I don't know, whatever. That is the point. Always hit no. Yeah, I mean, I have actually started doing this, but because I've encountered so many of these. But for a while, I was like, you know, I'm generally a tipper. And so if there's a tip option, I'll pick it. And then this type of shit, the flat fees ones are the worst. Because if they're percentage based, you could just pick the 10% or 15% one or whatever.
Nowadays, there are people who argue 20% is kind of a cheap tip.
While the percentage that consumers are tipping at full-service restaurants—
Who argues that 20% is a cheap tip? That guy? Waiters, servers. Tip your economists. What I don't get is why people don't ever tip their streamers. You know what I'm saying? We fucking do. No, it's like sometimes you'll sub and that's fine, but you never give me a tip with the sub. It's like, okay, thank you for the $5 this month. Why isn't it 100%? Where's the 5 plus 5? People make it seem like 20% is the bare minimum. These days, like, you should feel bad. Yeah, I guess there's that. I guess it's weird. I don't think anyone I've ever heard say 20% is a bad tip, but I've also heard people say anything under 20, even 15 is a bad tip, which I think if you think about it is a little crazy for a lot of services. My vet has a 15% tip you have to opt out of. It's weird because a vet is a highly paid specific service. Like, you don't tip your doctor. That's such a strange thing to do. That's Mars, dude. That's Mars fucking for sure. Maybe you don't. Thank you, house. And you slip them a 20.
The number of tips provided at full-service restaurants grew 17.
Imagine tipping your vet to put your dog down. It's like an end-of-life appointment for your dog and they add a fucking 15% tip to it. Holy God.
Meanwhile, the tip frequency at quick service restaurants such as coffee shops and fast food chains rose 16% during the same time period.
I love my favorite meme is tip your landlord though. Like the TikTok thing where it's like a landlord being like, where's my tip? I think it's so funny. For someone who literally just sits on their ass and owns land and then you have to rent for them forever. It's heroic.
What we're seeing now nationwide is something that is known as tipflation. At every opportunity, we're being presented with a tablet that's asking us how much we'd like to tip.
In many cases, not only replacing the old-fashioned tip jars that you could feel good about throwing some spare change into, but actually suggesting tip amounts, often right in front of the employee receiving that tip. Not to mention also your dinner date and the dozen or so people standing behind you in line.
And it's gone beyond just the tablets. The other day I was using the Hopper app to book a hotel, and it wasn't until I confirmed my payment that I realized my hotel was $10 more expensive. It turns out Hopper assumed I wanted to add a tip, and I had to go back to a prior page in order to opt out.
Tipflation refers to not just that we're tipping more,
$4,000 in a hotel,
but we're tipping everyone.
Sheesh.
For everything.
Maybe you can afford a tip.
You're being guilted into tipping on something that is not technically a service. It's someone simply doing their job. In those situations, consumers are feeling resentful. Where do you draw the line?
I look poor as so I don't feel bad. That's the solution. Everybody needs to show up to any restaurant or situation looking as poor as they possibly can, so that when the fucking person looks them in their eye and then flips the thing around, they can be like, I'm gonna fucking wear garbage bags, hobo core. That's what you should do. Dress as poor as possible, but bring your own iPad. And then spin it around and make them tip you, dude. Like, you look like you have a job. You're doing well.
TIP stands for to ensure promptness.
No,
Tipping
it
may go
doesn't.
back as far as
Does
the
it?
Roman era, but according to most experts, the practice likely has its origins in medieval Europe.
Noblemen taking passage on roads would throw
That's-
coins to the rubble to ensure safe passage. One theory is that it evolved in eating and drinking establishments as a way to forestall envy, that when you're eating and drinking, you're having fun.
I'm sorry, so you're a nobleman in a carriage going down a dangerous street with a lot of people that could possibly make it dangerous for you, and your solution to showing them that you're not worth robbing is to toss money out the window? That is a walking fucking signal that this is a fucking place that you should rob.
Fast forward to the 19th century, when waiters who received a full wage went on strike demanding higher wages, they were replaced with women who employers could pay less. A decade later, there was the population of newly freed slaves. The idea from these restaurant owners was that they were giving the luxury or privilege of a white person's tips. That was without a full wage.
Ironically, as tipping
I
exploded,
mean, following that line of thought, you know, the accepted practice is that the only profession where tipping feels like morally important is waitress and waitressing, because they get paid sub minimum wage except for tips. Like you have to, which is because like they should just be legally able to behave more. But yeah, food delivery, sure. But the point is, like, you know, every job isn't supposed to have a tip.
it became less common in Europe and was replaced with service
Also
charges.
streamers, yeah, streamers.
While the first federal minimum wage law was passed in 1938, it wasn't until almost 3 decades later when the tip minimum wage was established. In 1991, the federal minimum wage for tipped employees was set at $2.13, which is what it remains at as of March 2023.
That's crazy. The minimum wage hasn't changed for tipped employees. It's $2.13 an hour. Yeah, so they just offloaded the cost of all these employees onto the public. But it sucks because if you're a fucking customer, you can be like, you know, I'm not going to tip because I'm making a moral stand that restaurants should pay their employees more. But in practice, you're just hurting this particular person's bottom line. It's like not everyone's doing it with you, so you're just being, it's
As far as I know, the United States is the only country that exempts tipped workers from having to receive the full minimum wage.
It is
Also, I've seen a lot of research that showed that the amount of tips you receive is very, very loosely, if not at all, correlated with performance. Like it's way more correlated with how you look, appearance, all that. So
legal to pay tipped workers less than the standard minimum wage, because tips presumably make up that difference.
in Canada, we don't have this tipped wage, but we still have imported US tipping culture base. Take all the best stuff from the US. Take, you know, high real estate costs, take tipping culture, take McDonald's. What you need next, Canada, if you're trying to fucking learn from the best country on earth, is our healthcare system. So right now in Canada, your healthcare is a little too affordable, and that means it's bad. So if you could just make your healthcare a little bit, and that little spice to it. Like every time you get a serious healthcare treatment, you should be worried. You should, I mean, a good sign, you know quality when you're worried it'll bankrupt you. And if you're ever going to the doctor and not worried it'll bankrupt you, then think about that. Ask your politicians why that's being allowed. And yeah, I mean, I don't even want to get to that, but like, it's pretty obvious that Canada is really low on the amount of guns. It makes me feel scared to be in Canada because like the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. You know what I'm saying? So actually, I do think my understanding is Canada is, I know one's close to America at all in terms of number of guns, but for all other countries, Canada is really high. Canada's got a lot of guns. So you know what? Keep that freedom up. Our northern brethren, Kekona respect.
When those in the service industry were feeling the brunt during the coronavirus pandemic, consumers started tipping for things they never had before. And the percentage of remote transactions when tipping was an option in which the consumer tipped soared from about 46% before the pandemic to around 86% in January 2022.
What?
If people were willing to tip the person delivering food to their home 30%, why not ask
that's
if they'd
for
like
delivery.
to tip when
Okay.
they come pick up?
During the
I thought
pandemic,
that was like buying shit on Amazon or buying online. I misunderstood. Yeah, for delivery, I get it. Okay, fine. But I was thinking about, I'm infinitely more likely to tip in person than for anything online except for delivery. Because if there's not a person staring at me, then I'll just hit the 0% or the no button. But if it's in person, I just feel like I should do it. I feel like if I see the person doing it, even if I didn't, I always click the button. And like, you know, if it's a percent, I'm generally fine with it. But when it's a big flat fee, it feels dumb. It feels fucking stupid.
businesses who lost a lot of traditional customers and transactions were looking for alternative ways to make up that income. And if asking for tips was one way to do it, they
Coward, I hit 0% and then stare them in the eye. I mean, to be honest, they probably don't care, because if you deal with 100 customers in a day, most won't tip and you're not thinking about it. It's not a big fucking deal. I think they're thinking about it more than they are, most likely. But then again, maybe they are thinking about it. Whenever they ask for tip, I comically pull out my pocket. I comically pull out my pockets and have a piece of lint fall out. You have a guy behind you play the womp womp sound. Sorry. That's what I do if I'm ever walking past someone who asks for change. I feel the instant fucking guilt. And so I have to like make a whole thing of like, I don't have cash. I have to like open my wallet. I can never just fucking walk by, dude. I'm always like, no, see, look, I'm not lying. I'm literally the person, I have no cash on me.
And since then, that ask hasn't dissipated.
They pull out a card reader. That's never happened to me, but I wonder what I would do. Because I'm always a no cash type of person. That's what I say. I have no cash, which is true. I don't have any cash. But if someone pulled out a fucking card reader, I don't even know how I'd respond. That's crazy. That's a GG. They say Venmo. They do? Well, I've never been hit with that. They say Venmo me? That's crazy. What I do then, if they have a phone, right? If they pull out a phone and say Venmo me, I'll just say, wait a minute, I'll make you more money than you ever thought possible. And I linked it to my latest crypto token. And I tell them they can send whatever they have to invest, and I will triple that by the end of the day. Like I'll 10x their money. The return's crazy. So basically what I'm doing is offering them a chance to build real wealth. Teach a man to fish, you know what I'm saying?
Another reason consumers say they feel pressured to tip more? They're being asked to tip prior to service completion.
asking for a tip beforehand is almost like a bribe, right? I'm afraid not to tip because, well, you do less good work.
Customers might not be concerned about the barista's perception of their tip before getting their latte, but what about the mechanic repairing your car? I don't know about you, but I'm certainly going to make sure to tip them well to ensure my safety.
I never even thought about that. That's actually really interesting. If you get asked to tip your mechanic before they fix your car, I guess that is a bit of a fucking sticky situation, because you do want to hit that fat 0% button and look them in the eye, but then you don't know if you're going to get the best and most honest service. That's kind of up. That's a fucked up situation. That's mafia shit.
Another reason consumers are tipping more, newer technologies. Kiosks and tablets with 3 large tipping suggestions that pop up on the screen in front of you. 3 options chosen by the business.
I have not yet been to the restaurant where they recommend.
Oh, bro, some of these, I'm just now realizing it's just hitting me. They're chosen by the business. It makes so much sense. Because I've seen some where it's 20, 25, 30. So minimum 20. 20, 25, 30, and the middle. It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, this is a big purchase. I'm dropping a 30. I had a bookstore cashier ask for a tip. You grabbed the book, you walk to the cashier, they ring it up, and then you pay a tip on that? For the price of the book? A more expensive book is a more expensive tip for that service? That's crazy. And you didn't pay? You hate fucking small business owners. You hate workers. As a non-American that just moved to the US, are you meant to tip Starbucks/coffee shop workers? That's a gray area, right? In my mind, I'd say Starbucks almost no. Coffee shop workers, yes. Like if you're at a local coffee shop, I probably would. I don't drink coffee, but if I did, I would tip. But at Starbucks, because it's a corporate chain and you're often ordering from a drive-through window or whatever, I probably wouldn't. It's I guess it's a gray area. Starbucks employees get paid full hourly wages? Yeah, then don't tip. Don't tip.
According to a 2022 creditcards.com survey, 22% of respondents said when they're presented with various suggested tip
All I'm saying is not all of you have seen the horrors of living in Los fucking Angeles, going to get the most mid burrito you've ever had in your life that costs $18, and then there's a fucking suggested 30% tip. It's like fucking crazy. I lived in Arizona, dude, and in Arizona I could get a Chipotle burrito for fucking $8. That's on you for not going to a Mexican place. True. Although I went to a taco truck that had a fucking tip. Had one of these.
They feel pressured to tip more than they normally would.
They use those options as an indication of kind of what the normative range is and feel compelled to tip within that range. So the more you ask, the more you get.
The 3 prominent companies with that trendy, sleek look are Square, Toast, and Clover. They launched a bit more than a decade ago to help businesses run smarter, faster, and easier, all in one point of sale or POS systems. In some cases, fewer fees so it's less of a burden to accept multiple credit cards, no long-term contracts, and multiple other useful tools, including inventory and employee management.
I mean, they're actually kind of hype businesses.
Got credit card processing into the hands of individuals and very small merchants. Square did a great job. It's been a tremendous growth story. That's half of the business today.
Do you think these companies are responsible for this turn of events?
Square is the reason Jack Dorsey stopped giving one shit about Twitter years ago. Because all of his money was in a little bit in Twitter and mostly in Square, and Square started taking off, and he just like, why the would I ever give one shit about being CEO of Twitter? So he was still CEO, but he spent all of his time on Square for a decade. I mean, for 8 years, whatever. Yeah, then Twitter just didn't have anything happen for
Events that we've
and
seen
now
with
Elon
tipping?
Musk owns it.
I would
Pog.
say they could take some of the credit for helping restaurants gather more tips.
Rocket Man, think of
Robert
the
Sanchez manages Eli's Essentials in New York City. One of the business's locations uses Toast, while the other uses this. He says the storefront that uses Toast sees more and higher tips.
The
Sheesh.
Clover, Square, and Toast terminals to a consumer are very easy to use. Big buttons, big areas to sign the tip, an easy way to tip a different amount if you don't like the starting at 20% option. There are others that do it. They're just not as cool looking.
We've come a long way from being able to just throw your spare change into the jar by the cash register.
Do you know anyone at Square need a vouch? Maybe. Are you in like front-end web dev? I probably know a guy. I mean, I could tell him you're just a Twitch chatter. I could look at your chat history, see if you're crazy.
The new tablets.
Maybe
have
someone in
turned
chat
what
used to work
be
there.
a
Can help you
sin
out.
Of omission. I simply didn't put money into the tip jar into a sin of commission. I have to hit a button and say no tip. I have to actively choose not to tip. Whereas before, not tipping was a kind of a passive thing.
Glancing at the tip jar could have also been a way to get a sense of how many others are tipping on that service and maybe even how much money. Meanwhile, not only can the tipping options be customized, but the tipping feature can be disabled as well. So it's the merchant's choice to ask or not to ask for tips.
From the business side, it makes employees want to perform better and do a better job.
It's seriously significant.
I guess the thing I would like to know most of all, this is most important to me, is like now that tips have become digitized and they go through the same point of sale service to the business, how much of it is getting back to the employee that I'm tipping? I can't help but feel that it's not even close to all of it. That's one of my biggest concerns. I'm just paying more. Realistically, what I feel like I'm doing when I'm tipping on a fucking iPad, I am just telling them that I can pay more for this service so you can charge me more. 100% to the non-management workers, that's based.
You'd be a foolish business owner not to install it based on what the numbers display. Even a mammoth company as large as Starbucks has decided that they need to sink or swim, and the best way for them to do that is to offer the tip screen.
Starbucks rolled out the
Starbucks
tipping feature in stores in September 2022.
It's one thing to have a happy staff. It's another thing to have customers that are feeling resentful. I think it's a calculus that all business owners really need to make.
No, it's not. Every business should have this. From my POV, I hate it. But if you're a business, it's just some percentage of people will give you more money. And if they grumble about it, it'll be society-wide. They'll be like, this has gone too far. But they're not going to blame one business individually because everyone's doing it. If I owned a small business, I would fucking add the thing on my iPad. I would have the iPad with a tip. I can see why they all do it.
Do you think that they're somewhat going to start seeing that they're getting lower tips because people are paying tips to so many services, or they're...
My Wetzel's Pretzels will have mandatory $8 tips minimum. And if you pick the $8, we will stop you at the door and every employee will kind of frown at you like you picked the minimum. Well, then we'll let you go. Obviously, we're not going to trap you there. That would be illegal, but you definitely have to listen to our spiel.
I think that's a very real danger of servers in a sit-down restaurant. They were greatly affected during and immediately post-pandemic by restaurants doing all sorts of fees. Their tips were actually going down because consumers were saying, well, if I'm paying for the health insurance and I'm paying for inflation and I'm paying for this and I'm paying for that, enough is enough.
Right.
The more you levy these line items onto consumers, guess who's being penalized? It's the one area that's still quasi-discretionary, which is the tip.
I went door to door talking with waitresses, bartenders, and baristas, and while they wanted to remain anonymous, they told me it's happening already. With inflation and being prompted for tips left and right, they say customers have already started to tip less and sometimes not at all.
A 2022 study found that 17% of Americans are tipping less because of inflation. However, 10% report tipping more. At the same time, more than half of Americans, or 60%, want to do away with tipping entirely. The extent of
I
pandemic
mean, this is a survey, so I don't trust that really. If they ask people, are you tipping more? 10% will probably, 10% are sociopaths and will say, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm tipping more. But like, you know, having done some market research in my day, I don't think customers lie. They just lie for no reason. For no reason, they will lie about their preferences in market research.
The extent of pandemic-influenced generosity has also gone down. 43% of consumers typically tipped servers 20% or more in 2022, compared to 56% of consumers in 2021. Meanwhile, the average tip for full-service restaurants has gone down only slightly during the same time period. According to Toast, 19.6% in the fourth quarter of 2022, compared to 19.8% in 2021. However, according to surveys conducted in those same years, respondents said they're tipping higher percentages, 21.2% and 18.9% respectively.
It can genuinely hurt the people who truly, truly rely on gratuities for their livelihood. I firmly believe that the tipping invasion we are experiencing right now, I think it's a net negative for society.
I think it'd be based if, let's say people do rely on tips and we need to, the tip has to happen, okay? When you're at a restaurant, at some random point in the night, a bell will ring. Wow, like a siren. And then one person at random is chosen and they have to pay the whole tip for everybody all night. And everyone else is off the hook. So if you're one of the unlucky ones, you're kind of like Jesus Christ. Yeah, you lose the lottery and you have to pay thousands of dollars. You're a sacrifice. But everyone else is good. I only tip whenever the waiter comes up to me and says, please, my livelihood depends on this. Oh God, please. They have to do that or you don't tip. You like the feeling of power, huh?
And with that tablet at just about every counter, no matter where you go, the question is, where's the tipping point? I'm wondering how long before I'm tipping my doctor after an annual physical.
We already made that joke.
If you want to seem especially generous after an exceptional meal, you might decide to go big and tip 30%. But it's a cycle. As more people seeking to make a good impression then up their tips to 30%, maybe even 35%, what becomes a generous tip?
I have to believe tips are going to go up from where they are today. But I also think there's got to be a logical ceiling somewhere. I just don't know where it is.
Why? I don't know why they have to go up. The thing about it's not inflation because it's a percentage. The bill will naturally go up as the price of the food or whatever goes up. But 20%, it's already high. I mean, that's good. That shouldn't drift upwards. It's a percentage. Yeah, insane. But interesting video. It didn't feel like filler. It felt good.